Marvel Comics, Curse of the Weird, the oddest comics ever, edited by Mort Todd. 4-part series from 1993 to 1994. Greetings, friends. Today we are looking at a short-lived 4-part series from Marvel Comics called Curse of the Weird, the oddest comics ever. Now, this was published between 1993 and 1994, and the editor on this series was Mort Todd. So the concept behind Curse of the Weird predominantly is that these are the strangest stories ever published from Atlas Comics in the pre-code era of the 1950s. Some of these comic stories were a little later in the 50s, as you will see, and for issue number 1, which came out in December of 1993, we are looking at a cover rendered by none other than Steve Ditko. As it says, "If you want stranger tales than these, see a doctor." And the first story is called Do Not Panic, drawn by Steve Ditko and written by Stan Lee. Now, this story is pretty strange. It's kind of a Twilight Zone type of thing, wherein these aliens have landed, and so the people are freaking out. So they're wondering what they're going to find when the aliens come down from their ship. Now, the second story is called The Brain, art by Russ Heath. And of course, there's a signature there. Originally presented in Adventures in Terror, number 4, that classic Atlas title. And this is one weird freaking story, folks. You got a Nazi war criminal, and he saves his own head and brain. One of the strange and kind of funny things about The Brain is the fact that this guy's head moves, so he kind of follows him along. He hops around. You can see his head hopping on the banister. Pretty bizarre. And he comes back. The Brain comes back in another story, in another issue of Curse of the Weird. Now, this is pretty cool. This is Curse of the Weird, a 2-page article by the editor, Mort Todd. And he talks a bit about the Atlas Age, the pre-code era. And then he gets into the artists that are involved with issue number 1. Steve Ditko, Russ Heath, Bill Everett. Folks, what a lineup. And at the same time, it's interesting to note that Monster Menace number 1 was coming out. And then you have Book of the Dead number 1, The Origins of Man-Thing and Frankenstein, on the agenda here for 1993-1994. X-Men vs. Dracula. And there's no way that they could do a Curse of the Weird, the oddest stories ever from Atlas, without publishing a few Basil Wolverton stories, such as The Eye of Doom. Check out that is just a great splash page right there. And of course, the traditional bullpen bulletins from Marvel. Mighty Marvel Fan Phone. It's the cost of a regular call from anywhere in the United States, and it won't exceed 35 cents. Your inside connection at Marvel. And the last story in issue number 1 is The Man Who Owned a Ghost. What would you do if you knew the secrets of darkness? What grim deeds would you command if you were the man who owned a ghost? Really cool art by Bill Everett in this one. Originally presented in Astonishing Tales number 10 from Atlas. Nice panel there. Love that ghosty. Now here's an ad that's worth mentioning. It's Konami, of course, video game company in the 90s. And their new sensation, Zombies Ate My Neighbors. I do love this page, the ad. That is really cool looking. Check that out, man. Bill Everett doing it to it. Very nice panels. And that closes out issue number 1 of Curse of the Weird. Now let's dive into issue number 2. Curse of the Weird, issue number 2 from January of 1994. You must see the unsolid man. Am I dead or what? I really like this cover by Rick Altergott. And as you can see, the inside contents here, Ghost of Grismore. No sign of life, that's a Ditko story. The Bat's Tale. We get a sneak preview of what's to come in cinema, with Addams Family Values scheduled to be released November 19th, 1994. We begin with The Ghost of Grismore Castle, with art by Steve Ditko. So basically this is all about this guy that's trying to scare this other guy by making him think that this house is haunted. You know where that's going, right? Yes, indeed. But some really great Ditko art here. This one was originally published in Strange Tales number 79 in December of 1960. So the comics code had already kicked in. This series, Curse of the Weird, is not entirely pre-code, right? As I was saying, some of it's late 50s, and for example, this is 1960. Really cool story. Check out that panel. The splash page is fantastic. Bat's Tale. Art by Russ Heath, written by Stan Lee. Bat's Tale originally appeared in Marvel Tales number 113 in April of 1953. And it is an excellent pre-code horror tale. Pretty bizarre. Once again, it has a little bit of a Twilight Zone type of thing going for it. Really cool stuff. Look at these panels, man. That is just groovy. Next up we have Innocent Bystander with art by Dick Briefer. Now this story was originally published in Journey into Mystery number 5, February of 1953. Nothing in life goes unseen. Even the most perfect murder, executed behind locked doors with no visible witnesses, has its innocent bystander. A spine-tingling visit into the crypt of shadows. In the Curse of the Weird section here, Mort Todd is talking about the Comics Code Authority and, of course, the artists that are in this particular issue, including Dick Briefer, Russ Heath, Steve Ditko, and Joe Orlando. But also they mentioned this, Spider-Man vs. Dracula number 1, which I am not familiar with. I've never even seen this cover before, but that is a really cool looking cover. I may have to check that out. Then you got a big ad from East Coast Comics, some more Monster Menace, of course where monsters dwell, a lot of Kirby stuff in there, and Ditko. Here we go with The Unsolid Man from World of Fantasy number 13. Now this is August of 1958. Okay, so a few years after the Comics Code kicked in. And this particular tale rendered by Joe Orlando with a script by Carl Wessler. As it says, alarm drove Arnold Benson into frantic flight, and he found an unusual way to outdistance his pursuers. Then the strange thing happened that made it seem they could never catch the Unsolid Man. Really strange story, folks. I'm not going to give it away. I highly recommend that you check these issues out. You can get them cheap. I think Mort Todd did a great job with this short-lived series. Issue number 2 ends with a story by Stan Lee drawn by Steve Ditko called No Sign of Life. Is it possible for an entire galaxy to have no sign of life? Or is there sometimes more to life than meets the eye? Not particularly the most spectacular Ditko story. Let's put it that way, folks. There you go, folks. That concludes our look at issue number 2 of Curse of the Weird. In part 2 of this video series, we will look at issues number 3 and 4. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, please like and subscribe. Thank you.